The Arizona Cardinals' loss to the Indianapolis Colts in week 2 of the preseason yielded the perfect outcome for Jonathan Gannon in the upcoming week. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Big show today. Lot to discuss as we inch closer to week 1 of the regular season in Orchard Park. Thanks for being a part of the 8th season as I host Locked On Cardinals. That's absolutely wild. I've been in sports radio since 2011 in Phoenix, going on my 8th season with Locked On. It's been incredible. Thank you for being a part of this next chapter, whether you're an everyday or been around for a long time, or if this is your first listen. Thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second listen. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So you'll see, if you're watching on YouTube, the overlay of best outcome for Cardinals against Colts. And that may be a little off-putting because they didn't play that well for a good portion of the game. There's some highlights, but I'll explain what I mean. The good, next segment, and the bad, the final segment. And it was an interesting game to watch for a couple different reasons. First off, Jonathan Gannon listened to me. Thankfully, none of the starters played. And that's something that I think is good for the team. I don't think that in this current situation, this team would benefit from any of the starters playing. I just don't. If Kyler Murray's not playing, it just changes everything. And Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't need to show anything else. He's going to have his learning curve, regardless of if he plays in the preseason or not. This is a bona fide depth chart preseason for the Cardinals. You saw Darius Robinson played last week, played 11 snaps, got behind the line of scrimmage twice. That's all you need to see. I mean, it's really not like, oh, these guys need reps before they're – no, they don't. No, they don't. Preseason is becoming a farce. It's becoming the Pro Bowl. And for those guys who are trying to make the roster, trying to make the practice squad, trying to jump up from third string to second string or whatever it may be, absolutely, this is important a lot more than the starters play. Having said all of that, this was the best outcome we could have seen for the Arizona Cardinals last week against Indy. And there's a couple different reasons why. First, there's a lot to learn from. That's number one. So many penalties, 11 penalties for 82 yards. Rookie Christian Jones on the left side out of Texas, 5 of them were for him. Isaiah Adams, I believe, had 2 or 3. The offensive line was a terror regarding holding penalties. That is good tape for the Cardinals to watch. Not just for the rookies, but for everybody. That's something everybody will be able to learn from. And I think that when it's so egregious and so obvious, you just kind of have to look at it and be like, yeah, it's a preseason. These are rookies. Holding calls are different. These players are faster. Even guys who are practice squad players in the NFL are probably the fastest pass rushers Christian Jones has seen in his life on a football field. The NFL hits different. It's hard. Playing offensive line's hard, man. That 0-1 jump doesn't just automatically snap. And Christian Jones wasn't a top 2 or 3 round pick for a reason. That's not to say he can't be a guy that can play meaningful snaps for the Cardinals in years to come. It doesn't mean any of that. Isaiah Adams has been thrown around to a bunch of different positions. And that's another thing where it's like, it's hard to kind of gain any sort of momentum when you're playing a couple different positions in a given game. They're just trying to find the sauce. They're trying to find the depth. They're trying to find where these players will be best fit when games start to matter. You saw John Gaines for his first extended play time since becoming a pro after, going down with an injury during camp last year. He struggled. Fine. It's all part of the game, man. This is all part of what it's supposed to be. And it was massively beneficial for the Cardinals. Okay. And then outside of the penalties, you started to see some flash plays, some flashbulb memories you'll remember from this game. One, Trey Benson's almost touchdown run that got negated by a holding penalty. Taylor-Demerson's interception where he tippy-toed on the sideline. That's an instinct play. Sure. Was the play late? Yup. Did the pass rush help make the safety's job easier? Yup. Was that also just a bona fide NFL play by a guy who's poised to be the next safety for the Arizona Cardinals in years to come? Yeah. And again, these things don't matter as pertaining directly to wins and losses for the Cardinals. And this means everything for young players who are not only showing their worth on face value, but also getting reps if there were to be some sort of injury and they'd have to be thrust into action early. So while I'm, ping-ponging back and forth on the importance of the preseason, starters don't need to play. That's one. Depth players like Taylor-Demerson is going to be on the roster. He's going to back up Jalen Thompson. So we know what he's going to be. And also getting the positive confirmation bias that, oh, this dude can ball. And everybody, I've done a couple different radio hits, one in New Orleans, and then one randomly in Cincinnati before the season started, before the preseason started. Both were like, yep, Taylor-Demerson, he was on our list, our watch list, as we were talking on the radio about the specific team that they cover. So the flashbulb memories, beautiful thing. Trey Benson, Xavier Thomas, etc. I'll talk about the good in the next segment. And then the bad is almost as good as the good because that's how young players get better. I can almost assure that Christian Jones will never forget this film study, even though it was the preseason. Welcome to the NFL. And that's not a negative slight. He was looked at as a potential steal in the late rounds when the Cardinals got him. 6 years he played in college in Texas. The dude's played a lot of meaningful football on the biggest stage, top 5 biggest stage in college football. He should be fine. And 5 penalties in any game is something that will be seared into his brain. And hopefully it'll just be one of the biggest learning lessons he's had since playing the game of football, not just, after being drafted and then during camp and into the preseason. So all in all, Jonathan Gannon's got a lot to work with. And that's great. What's not so great is when you see what the depth is going to be for the Cardinals. They're still, and I won't open this can up. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I can't wait much longer. I'm going to do it tomorrow. But it just shows kind of a litmus test as we're less than 3 weeks away. This is what the depth of the team looks like after you get through, that first tier, or the second tier, first tier, third tier, which is the second tier. It kind of just shows where the Cardinals are right now. And again, preseason, it's not a freak out or anything like that. It's just acknowledge what we saw. And hopefully this can be something that can be, sewn up pretty quickly. Knock the penalties down, everything like that as week 1 approaches. Locked On Cardinals, your team, everything. What was the good? And there was a lot of it. From players that you want the good to come from. I'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team, every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Now, when I think about eBay Motors, I think about 3 things: passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Whether it's superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, man. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So while the game Saturday night was sloppy, it was, there was stuff to work on. There were still a bunch of positives, and the positives you want. The positives you want to see. And my phrase that I use every day, as you'll know this, is the only thing that you don't want to see from the preseason is, oh no, that player's not ready. Oh no. May have been a missed draft pick. And sure, a couple games that quote unquote don't matter is not a signifier for things to come. Absolutely. Having said that, when you see positives from players that are going to make impacts, or you expect to make impacts right away, it's a beautiful thing. Number one, Trey Benson had his game. He was in the bad category last week. And it's grading on a curve, man. He's expected to be the second running back. And you've got your Amari DeMarcado truthers out there, your Michael Carter truthers out there. It'll be wild to see what the Cardinals do with the depth chart. I don't know how you drop one of those guys to the practice squad or cut him altogether. I don't see how you do it. But Trey Benson made his case, even though he was playing against the twos, for a guy who's going to get that 30% touch share with James Conner. I've wanted James Conner's carries to diminish for 2 years now. And you hope that it could be a 60-40 or 55-45 split if you're going to go with just those two guys. Trey Benson had a couple breakout runs, one of which was called back due to a penalty that was kind of a ghosty penalty. And another, he caught the edge and went down the sideline where he could have broke it. I mean, like, the dude is showing that he's going to be ready for NFL action right away. And that's a beautiful thing. That is a very, very good thing for the Cardinals, because this is going to be a run-first offense. This offensive line is – the strength is the run game. The strength is the run blocking. We saw it last year. There's going to be different pieces this year. Jonah Williams on the right, Paris Johnson Jr. on the left, Evan Brown probably playing left guard. But this offensive line's run protection is going to be the strength. And we'll see once they mold, because, again, there's a couple different players in different positions who haven't played alongside each other before. If you can rely on the run as the Arizona Cardinals, it's going to be your best friend and your best defense. Holding on to the ball, time of possession. Trey Benson looked great. You've got to give Daedrian Taylor-Demerson Rabbit his flowers also. The interception was great. He doesn't look uncomfortable on the football field. And as a safety, a lot of it is so, like, as interior defensive linemen, sure, you've got stunts, you've got different formations. You're trying to get the quarterback. That's it. You're trying to get the quarterback or trying to stop the run, whatever. It's like, it's a lot more waltzy. Go with me here. It's like the waltz. It's boxy. Okay? You've got a couple different outcomes. With safety, it's jazz. It's syncopation. It's completely different. It's feel, and it's instinct, and it's trusting your corners and your fellow safety. It's completely different. There's more freedom, but there's more to lose because you're the last line of defense. And he looks comfortable. Sure, he missed a couple. He didn't look perfect, but the beauty of it is he looked comfortable playing the position at the NFL level. And while it's against 2s and 3s, again, that's higher talent than he's seen when he was at Texas Tech. It's a jump up. It's different. And he looked good, okay? He didn't look lost. He didn't have the Isaiah Simmons or Zaven Collins deer in the headlights look like, oh no, what am I doing? And then he had the pick, which was a beauty. It was just, at least he didn't drop the ball or not get 2 feet in bounds. It was perfect. It's exactly what you want. I will give an honorable mention to Darren Hall again. Played 70% of the snaps. I will group him in with Starling Thomas for different reasons. One, Starling Thomas is surprising people as a guy who could, be a bona fide starter for the Cardinals. I didn't even put his name on the list. And that's my fault. Played great in the first 2 preseason games. You know what he looks like? An NFL player playing in the preseason. An NFL starter, fringe starter playing in the preseason. You could tell the differentiation between practice squad guys, third string guys trying to make the roster, and a guy who's played a whole boatload of meaningful snaps like he did last year in his first year. And then Darren Hall is really making a case for himself to maybe not make the 53, but be that practice squad guy, be that Jace Whitaker for this team, even though they play different positions, where whenever you see Jace Whitaker on the field over the last couple of years, who was hurt? He was one of the first two men up. Whether it be Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, whoever it may be. Darren Hall could be that guy for the cornerback room for the Cardinals. And then my favorite one, not only because you really root for a player like this with this story, but also because this position is most needed of talent for the Cardinals, is Xavier Thomas from the pass rush position. Had another sack, played around 50% of the snaps, and the dude looks healthy. He looks spry. Not a dude who's had 2 season-ending injuries when he was in college. Dude looks like he's ready to ball. He was the one who got the pressure on the quarterback when the interception was thrown to Rabbit. He got another sack earlier in the game. Like, the dude looks ready to play at the NFL level. And you love those stories, and every NFL story is great. Okay? The 6th round, the 7th round guys like that make it and end up making a career, play 5, 7, or 8 years, make $15 million, $20 million, and then, maybe they win a Super Bowl, whatever it is. Like, those stories are awesome. Xavier Thomas, I don't see a world where he wouldn't have been a 3rd round pick, fringe 2nd round pick, if he didn't have those 2 injuries in college. The dude looks ready to play right away. And that, for the Cardinals, is fantastic. I mean, Cam Thomas had 2 sacks. Cam Thomas has been in the league for a couple of years. So it's not like, Xavier Thomas's performance means a lot more than Cam Thomas's performance. Because Cam Thomas should be doing that. He's played a couple of years in the league already. But if Xavier Thomas can replicate and be able to somewhat fill, even if it's just a situational pass rush role, it's going to massively benefit the Cardinals. And they need that. They need that pretty desperately. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day, the bad. And while the bad, this isn't like, it's not, close the curtains here. It's the second week of the preseason. But there are now there's momentum going in the wrong way for a couple different things. And needs to be discussed. And I'll do that next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, man. America's #1 sportsbook. And, well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. A 3-week free trial. Make a $5 bet. I had YouTube. I had the Sunday Ticket last year, and I got it from FanDuel, and it's the greatest version that I've ever seen of the Sunday Ticket. So this is pretty sweet. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. So, best outcome for the Cardinals was what we saw this past Saturday. A lot to work on. A lot of film. A lot of young guys making mistakes that are correctable. It's just that's what we witnessed. And there were some really, really good flashbulb moments. Trey Benson, couple long runs. Rabbit with his interception. Xavier Thomas had another sack. You're starting to see momentum from those 3 guys. And Trey Benson didn't have a great first week. But, he showed what he's capable of, even though, again, it's against the 2s and 3s. We're talking preseason football, okay? So when I say, I'm not saying the sky is falling by any stretch, or I'm not saying the sky is all rainbows and butterflies, but it's good to see positive things from guys who are set to make an impact or who are expected to make an impact in some form or fashion for the Cardinals this season, and that's why they were drafted where they were drafted. Now, the not so great. Elijah Wilkinson, this is no personal, like, I have to give a disclaimer once in a while, and I think maybe it's unnecessary. I find it necessary. This is never personal with anybody that I talk negatively about. Ever, ever. People thought that I hated Cliff Kingsbury, Steve. I was like, I don't have time to hate people. It's like, I'm talking about the avatar that is the head coach or the GM or the left guard, right guard of the Arizona Cardinals. Elijah Wilkinson, I don't know how he makes the 53-man roster. Like, I don't understand. I think that they're really trying to figure out if there is a place for him. And he may be a practice squad guy. He may be a third-string guy. It shows that the depth of the Arizona Cardinals is predicated upon the younger guys. We'll see if John Gaines can be a guy, because he was in line to at least compete for the left guard and center positions 2 off seasons ago before he got hurt. Then they brought in Yalta Frolt, and he's been great. Left guard has been the biggest Achilles heel for the team. And wherever Elijah Wilkinson was on the line this past Saturday was the weak side of the line. And when you're trying to watch rookies under a microscope, especially Isaiah Adams, it's like it's very difficult to do that when the veteran who's played many games in the NFL can't defend a second-tier pass rush. It's very difficult to go back to the drawing board. We're like, well, how would Isaiah play? Well, I don't know. He wasn't in the greatest situation. You want adversity, of course, for your young guys. And both Isaiah Adams and Christian Jones felt that this past weekend. But you also want to see what it looks like when you have a left tackle who's actually blocking properly, so Isaiah Adams can just play his position to the best of his potential or to the best of his ability at that given time for that given snap. When the play's blown up on one side of the line immediately, it's like, well, what can you learn from that? How somebody adjust? Sure. But that's not what this is about. Like, you want to learn as much as humanly possible when things are good, when things are bad, and how they adapt. When things are mostly bad because he's lining up alongside Elijah Wilkinson who can't block anybody, it's difficult. And again, this isn't a direct attack whatsoever. This is the avatar that wears the number, and has the helmet. That's what I'm talking about. So I don't know. And listen, the run protection was a lot better than pass protection. Pass protection did not look good. Luckily for the Cardinals, you've got 2 left tackles and 2 right tackles. One of them, they're just both playing on the line at the same time. Kelvin Beachum is probably going to be serviceable enough, but he plays tackle more than guard. Like, this is really going to determine, like, if Evan Brown's the guy and can really just play left guard, and everybody that I've had, Donnie Druin and Tyler Drake have said that Evan Brown's in line for that role. And it seems like through 2 weeks that the reason was not just because he's the most equipped, but also Isaiah Adams and John Gaines just aren't ready, which is fine. They're young, and we'll see. But that was something for me with the bad where it's compounded like, well, if somebody gets hurt, yikes. Yikes. And then the bad also, and this is what I call a cross-show tease. Cardinals need a backup quarterback. And while Clayton Tune is eons ahead of Desmond Ridder, that doesn't, and this isn't a for sure, like, this can't change. And I don't see how it could also. Let me explain. Just because Clayton Tune is eons ahead of Desmond Ridder doesn't mean Clayton Tune would be an effective backup for Kyler Murray. Both Desmond Ridder and Clayton Tune could run the RPO game for the Cardinals if they were going to run the ball 35 times a game. Both could do that. Throw the ball 10, 12 times. Like, if you want to keep it in a vacuum like that, both could do it. Clayton Tune's got it. He's got an arm. Okay. I championed him last year to start from week 1, and I don't take that back. I mean, I think because it didn't matter, Josh Dobbs was a revelation for like 3 games. Josh Dobbs is one of the biggest mysteries in the history of, the last 2 years of football. But the one thing that can't happen for this continual rebuild to bear fruits is they can't worry about who their backup quarterback is if Kyler Murray does get hurt. This needs to be a veteran. I've got one name in mind. I got eviscerated, and I don't care. Like, I don't hold that as, oh, I had a hot take, guys. Stop it. Oh, I'm going to get some crap for this one. Nope, don't care. You'll never hear me say that. But I did get some not so nice things said because of one person who could be and should be the backup for this team. He's not on the roster currently. He's got a similar skill set to Kyler Murray, but not really. He is able to use his legs because he played wide receiver in college. He's won playoff games. He's in his late 30s. But for the Colt McCoy backup crew, and Colt McCoy was over or close to 40, this guy fits the system a little bit better. I'm going to tell you who it is right now. I will say not one other word, and that will be my opening segment for tomorrow. It's Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill would be the guy that I would trust to produce 70% of what Kyler Murray does, which is wildly out of bounds more than what either Clayton Tune or Desmond Ridder could provide. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.